So today we are going to make the famous tumbler that everybody has been talking about using this. So I'm super excited. Come along with us and we'll show you how it's done. So in order to do this, you're gonna need a few things. All right, so you can see we have our vinyl. Remember, this needs to be Oracle 651 permanent vinyl. If you use a temporary vinyl, I've heard that it doesn't do really well. You're going to need a brush, some painter's tape, a scraper, some type of heat tool. If you don't have this, you can use a hair dryer. You'll need a water bottle, of course, powder coated, so we're gonna hope that this one works out well. And you're going to need Citristrip stripping gel. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to our iPad and we are going to get our design ready. So I already did a little bit of pre-work for us where I went ahead and I chose the design that I wanted to use, and it's a super cute design. It says, if you see me talking to myself, do not disturb, I'm having a staff meeting. I feel like that's me like all the time. So we have got the design together. We're getting ready to go and send it to the Cricut machine. So I'll pan back up and let you see how I get things together to put it on the Cricut. We'll get it cut out and then we'll move on to the next step. So just hang tight. All right, so I already have my vinyl cut out to the size that I needed. I knew that I wasn't gonna make it any bigger than, 4 or 5 inches. So I went ahead and cut 5 inches by 12. That way I can arrange things on the screen like I want them and get the maximum use from my vinyl. So I'm over here, I'm gonna scoot the monogram that I have. I'm gonna scoot it underneath the wording, because then I can kind of use just a more narrow piece of vinyl to be able to cut this out. And so because I'm doing vinyl, I am not going to mirror it because this is regular vinyl, not heat transfer vinyl. So we do not need to mirror. And I'm going to click next. And then you're gonna see me spin my chair around to feed it into the Cricut. So I'm not turning my back on you. I'm just trying to get it fed into the Cricut for the next step. So I'm going to choose premium outdoor vinyl because that's the setting that I use. And now it's blinking, so it's asking me to load. I don't know if you can see that blinking light. But I'm gonna turn around and I'm going to feed it through. And I always like to make sure I've got plenty of space back there. Make sure nothing is gonna catch on the back of the thing when I hit go. And I always love to do fast mode when I can, so I went ahead and did that. And I'm gonna click the flashing Cricut button and let it do its jam. So after it finishes cutting, we'll come back and show you what's next. So the Cricut is done cutting out our lettering for our stencil. So next I'm going to pan down and let you see how I take off the pieces of the stencil that I don't want. So normally when I'm doing a mug or a tumbler, I want to take out the outside and leave the inside so that all I have are the letters. I'm doing this the opposite way because I'm creating a stencil. So I want to take out the inside and leave the outside. You'll be able to tell what I'm doing in just a minute when I pan down and let you see my tabletop. You'll also notice that I have some craft paper, actually some butcher paper on my table. It's to protect it because if Citristrip will take off powder coating from this tumbler, it will probably take off the top of my table. And so I want to protect it. So that's why I have the butcher paper there. So I'm going to pan down and let you see what's going on. All right, to make things a little bit easier, I am going to cut this a little bit because I'm going to have 2 separate stencils. One is going to be of the monogram and the other is going to be of the saying. And so I just want to separate these, and I'm giving myself a little bit of wiggle room around what's going to end up being the stencil because I want to make sure that I have plenty of room to tape, or enough room to tape. So ordinarily, I'll start with this one first since it's easiest. Ordinarily, I would take off all of this around and just leave the letters. But because I'm making this a stencil, I'm actually going to do the opposite, and I'm going to take the letters out and just leave behind the white space. And I'm just going to put that on that butcher paper. It's actually kind of nice to have the butcher paper there. I have a place to stick all the, the sticky vinyl parts. I'm usually trying to figure out where to put them so they don't get permanently stuck to something I don't want it stuck to. So it's a nice added bonus of having that butcher paper there. And so now I'm left with this lettering. And so this will be the stencil for one side of my tumbler. All right, and so we're gonna do the next piece. It's got way more letters because I chose a quote. Now I may be regretting that I chose a quote, but nonetheless, we are going to get everything weeded. And then once we've weeded everything out, we will be back. All right, so you can see we have both of our stencils ready to go. And so now I'm just gonna take some transfer tape. I didn't have this on my list of items at the very beginning. So add that to the list of things that you'll need. If you have this kind of vinyl, you probably have transfer tape. And so I'm just going to lay it on there, flip it over, and I'm gonna cut it. This is also where your squeegee is gonna come in handy. You're gonna use the squeegee for both getting the stencil onto your water bottle, and you're also gonna use the squeegee for just making sure everything is stuck down nice and tight before you start applying the Citristrip. Now that we've got that done, I'm just gonna run my scraper over it just to get it adhered to the transfer tape. And since it's such a big piece, we don't have too much to worry about. I will take special care on this one though, to make sure all the centers of my O's and R's and B's and A's get stuck down so that they transfer with the larger piece of vinyl. And I've already wiped off my water bottle, so it's really ready to go. And so because this is going to be such a big portion of it, I'm going to put it right here and kind of center it over the little icon here. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if this stuck onto my transfer tape, and it looks like it did. I'm gonna move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. And you see I'm pulling the backing from the transfer tape instead of trying to pull it the opposite way, because I want to make sure all of the insides of those letters actually made it to the transfer tape. And if I do it this way, if something is stuck onto the back of this, I can just lightly press it back down before I get too far. All right, so put that out of the way. And now I'm going to take my water bottle and put it right here. And I'm going to work really hard to get this centered the first time. And what I may do is put a tiny crease at the top just to give me something to go by. So I'm just pinching that, the top and the bottom, to give me like a little line. And I'm going to do my best to line it up with the tip of that water drop. It's a little trick to get your stuff lined up. And then I'm going to press the middle first. And I'm going to run my finger from the middle out. And that hopefully gets everything pressed down nice and neat. And again, so we don't have any bubbles and things like that. All right, so I'm gonna rub really, really good with my hands. I'm actually gonna leave this transfer tape on because I find just in general, if I'm having to put any kind of heat on the vinyl to make sure it's sticking, that transfer tape just helps keep everything together really, really nicely. So I've got it all smoothed down on this side. You can see it's all smooth on this side. And now we're gonna take our heat gun and we are going to get this heated up and smoothed down. So give me just a second while I go plug it in, and you're gonna hear a bunch of noise, so I'm sorry in advance. All right, so we're finishing up. We're just pulling off the last of the transfer tape. You see, I'm just kind of making sure everything is sticking down. Not losing any peaks and valleys of letters and all that jazz. And that's it. So we've got it all down. And then our next step, I'm just rubbing. Our next step is to put on our painter's tape. And the painter's tape is to make sure that we don't accidentally get Citristrip on things that we don't want to get it on. And so we want to make sure that we've got our painter's tape all over the kind of area around where we're going to put the Citristrip. So I'm going to just get some of this tape and just run it straight down. And this is gonna take a little bit to do, but it's gonna be worth it because you don't wanna go through all that trouble of putting Citristrip on a stencil and then it ends up seeping underneath and ruining, you know, part of the tumbler that you didn't mean to get Citristrip on. All right, so I will say that this is a chemical, and we're gonna follow instructions. So it says to use protective eyewear, and it also says to protect your hands. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on gloves just to be safe. And I'm also going to pour it into a container that I will just be using for this, because I don't want to cross-contaminate anything else that I have. So, you know, I will say sometimes we throw caution to the wind and kind of do whatever we want, but I will say it is better to be safe than sorry. So you definitely want to use precaution anytime you're using chemicals and follow their instructions. So regardless of what I'm saying, follow the directions that they give you so that you keep yourself safe. The manufacturer knows way better than I do how to use their own product. So I'm pouring a little of that into this container. And now I'm going to take my brush that I had earlier. So my little brush, I have my little container. And I'm just going to dab it on here. It's a gel, so it's not going anywhere. Just want to be kind of generous with it. You want to make sure it gets on there pretty thick, because you don't want to have to come back and try it again. All right, so I will go set this outside and I'll be back. All right, we're back. So the Citristrip has been sitting on the tumbler for about an hour. I put it outside, I just kind of let it hang out while I was doing some other things. And so I went and did a little scratch test and it came off pretty clean. So I'm gonna put my gloves back on, new gloves, because the other ones I threw out. Put my gloves back on, I'm gonna wipe it off and see how much I can get off just by wiping. And then I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to go to the sink and scrub, so I'll probably come back. You won't see the sink part. But let me go ahead and put my gloves on and we'll see how it turned out. I'm excited. It's always so hard to put on these gloves. It's like my fingers get stuck in the holes. I feel like I'm, 3 years old again trying to get my winter gloves on. It's a struggle. All right. right, gloves on, sleeves up, and I've got some paper towels here. I'm gonna bring the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so you can see it's kind of drippy, which is why I'm so glad that that we had the stuff on here. All right, so it does look like I'm gonna have to take it to the sink. So I'm gonna wipe the majority of this off, and then I'm gonna take it to the sink and I'm gonna scrub. All right, so here we go. I think it turned out pretty good. The Citristrip did seep in a little bit underneath my tape. So you see that little kind of picked up part right there. But I think for the very first try, it turned out really, really good. I had a little spot over here that didn't get enough on it. And then I had a little spot right here that didn't get enough on it. But overall, it turned out to be super, super cute. So I think that we can say this is a winner. And so I'm super excited to try some additional ones. I've learned some things, probably didn't need a full hour. I probably could have done like maybe 45 minutes and checked on it. And so that may have prevented some of the seeping. I also probably could have stood it upright and let it run down instead of across. That probably would have stopped a little bit of seepage too. But for a very first try, I think it turned out great. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you got value out of this tutorial, please hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button and share with your friends. Until next time, toodles.